Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and pull out the essential insights you need fast. You ever stop and think about how just one decision, way up at the top, can kind of cascade down and really change someone's life, especially someone serving the country? Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly one of those moments. We're looking at a really significant presidential executive order. It's titled Reinstating Service Members, COVID-19 Vaccine Mandate Redress, and it was signed January 27, 2025. Our mission today is simple. Unpack this official document, break down what it actually says, and figure out what it truly means for the people affected.
Right. And just for clarity, an executive order, it's basically a directive from the president. It acts like law for the executive branch agencies, think Department of Defense, Homeland Security. Crucially, it doesn't need Congress to approve it. This one is aimed squarely at the military.
Exactly. And it's not just dry policy. This hits home for a lot of military members and their families. So we're going to pull out the absolute must-know bits from this order, give you the shortcut to understanding what's going on. Okay, let's unpack this then. To really get the significance here, we need a quick look back. The timeline is pretty important. It kicked off August 24, 2021. That's when the Secretary of Defense mandated the COVID-19 vaccine for all service members, all branches. Then, skip ahead a bit, that mandate was actually rescinded, canceled on January 10, 2023. But that wasn't the end of the story, not by a long shot. This new executive order in Section 1, it sets out a really explicit policy, and I actually want to read a bit here because the language is, well, quite strong. It calls the mandate an unfair, overbroad, and completely unnecessary burden on our service members. It even says those who refuse were unjustly discharged. That's pretty direct language for an official document, wouldn't you say? What does that signal?
Oh, it's incredibly direct. You don't often see wording like unfair and unjust describing a prior government policy within an executive order itself. It's quite pointed. It clearly marks a sharp turn from the previous administration's approach, and importantly, it frames everything that follows as fixing a wrong. The document really leans into this, saying many were discharged regardless of the years of service given to our nation. That implies their commitment wasn't properly valued. And it adds that this happened after failing to grant many of them an exemption that they should have received. So it's also pointing fingers at the exemption process. So the why behind this order, as it's written, is absolutely about correction, rectifying what the current president sees as, well, a systemic misstep. It literally states, federal government redress of any wrongful dismissals is overdue. Sets the stage, really.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting, because it moves from policy statements to actual concrete actions. Section 2, titled Redress. Let's break that down. First, reinstatement. Section 2A says the Secretaries of Defense and Homeland Security shall take all necessary action permitted by law to offer reinstatement. This applies to active and reserve members who were discharged solely for refusal to receive the COVID-19 vaccine and who request to be reinstated. That word solely, that seems like a massive qualifier.
It is. It's absolutely critical. Solely means this isn't for everyone who left during that period. It's laser focused on those where the only documented reason for their discharge was refusing the vaccine. So if someone, say, also had unrelated disciplinary actions pending or failed a fitness test around the same time, this order wouldn't automatically cover them.
So the military has to dig into the records for each case.
Exactly. They'll need to verify the discharge paperwork confirms the vaccine refusal was the exclusive reason. And like you said, it's not automatic reinstatement. The service member has to request it. They have to step forward.
Where the onus is on them.
Yes. Which, creates an administrative step, but it's necessary to manage the process.
Okay, so let's say someone meets the criteria, they request it, and they're reinstated. What does that look like financially, career-wise? Section 2B talks about full restoration of benefits. It says they'll revert to their former rank and receive full back pay, benefits, bonus payments, or compensation. For someone listening, what does full back pay and benefits actually mean in practice?
Yeah, full back pay is pretty comprehensive. It means if you were discharged, let's say, late 2021, and you get reinstated now in 2025, the order directs that you should receive the wages you missed for that entire period.
The whole time.
The whole time. Your base salary, housing allowances, any special pays you were getting. Essentially, it's trying to make your income stream whole as if you'd never left. And the benefits part is just as crucial. Things like healthcare coverage for that gap period. And maybe most importantly for long-term careers, restoring retirement contributions and the time accrued towards retirement.
Wow, that sounds like a huge administrative task.
It is. Recalculating potentially years of pay and benefits for thousands of people, adjusting service records. It's a massive undertaking for DoD and DHS. It's genuinely about trying to put them back where they would have been.
And the order doesn't stop there. Section 2C actually addresses a different group, those who chose to leave voluntarily instead of getting the vaccine. It says if a service member provides a written and sworn attestation, basically a formal statement that they voluntarily left or let their service lapse because of the mandate, they can return to service with no impact on their service status, rank, or pay.
That's a really interesting addition. It acknowledges people who weren't technically discharged but still separated due to the policy. And that sworn attestation, it's a serious thing. It's a legal declaration under oath that the vaccine mandate was their reason for leaving.
So they have to formally state that was the
Yes.
reason.
Yes, and it implies it was the sole or primary reason driving their decision to separate. If they qualify under this, their return is treated like they had a continuous service. Same rank, same pay grade status. It shows the order is trying to be quite broad in addressing the different ways the mandate affected people's service.
Okay, so putting this all together, what does it mean for the military as a whole and for these individuals potentially coming back? Let's look at sections 3 and 5, the additional responsibilities, and sort of the fine print. Section 3A puts a clear limit on this. It says, and I'm quoting again, "Nothing in this order precludes disciplinary or administrative action for conduct that is prescribed by the Uniform Code of Military Justice." Okay. What does that mean practically? Could someone come back under this order and then immediately face charges for something else?
Yes, potentially. That's precisely the point of this clause. It makes it absolutely clear this order isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card for unrelated misconduct. The UCMJ, that's the bedrock of military law. It covers everything from minor infractions to serious crimes. So this order is only about the vaccine-related discharge. If a service member had other separate issues under the UCMJ, maybe insubordination, theft, whatever those remain on the table, the military can still pursue action on those grounds.
So the reinstatement is purely for the vaccine issue, nothing else.
Exactly. It keeps the focus narrow and maintains military discipline overall.
And there's accountability built in too, right? Section 3B sets a deadline. Within 60 days of the order, so 60 days from January 27, 2025, the Secretaries of Defense and Homeland Security have to report back to the President on how implementation is going. That seems fast.
It is fast. A 60-day turnaround for a progress report on something this complex signals, well, a high level of priority from the White House. It suggests they want this action quickly and effectively, not buried in bureaucracy. It puts pressure on the departments to show results.
Okay, and one last crucial piece. Section 5C. This is legal language you often see, but it's important. It says, this order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States. What does that mean for the service members?
That's standard but critical language. What it means for you, the listener, and for the service members involved is this. The order tells the government agencies what to do. It directs the executive branch internally. But it specifically doesn't create a new legal right for an individual to sue the government if they think the order wasn't applied correctly in their case.
So you can't take the government to court based solely on this order if you disagree with, say, your back pay calculation.
Generally, no. Not based on this order creating a new right to sue. It's an internal directive to the agencies setting policy. It doesn't open the floodgates for new lawsuits based on the order itself. It's an important distinction about how executive orders function legally.
Right, so let's quickly recap. We've dug into a major executive order aiming to fix things for service members discharged over the COVID vaccine mandate. We've covered who might be eligible for reinstatement, the big deal about full back pay and benefits restoration, and even how it affects those who left voluntarily. But we also highlighted the key limits. It only applies if the vaccine was the sole reason, it doesn't erase other UCMJ issues, and it doesn't create new grounds for individuals to sue the government. It's about internal redress within the existing system.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you to chew on. How does something like this balance the military's need for readiness and following health directives with fairness to individual careers and choices? What kind of ripple effects could this have down the line? Think about military morale, maybe recruitment, or how future policies around readiness versus individual circumstances might be shaped. It's a really complex intersection, and this order is definitely a significant development in that ongoing conversation.